Right, hello guys, welcome to another video. Today we're going to do a camera review, but it's in a smartphone. Yes, a smartphone camera review. I know in the past I've said I'm kind of going to step away from the phone stuff and the smartphones, but I've got a new phone and it's the iPhone XR. Yep, because funny story, I broke my XS Max, so we're doing a review on this because I bought this. And because Apple are going to release a new phone kind of October time, we're in August, nearly September now, I wasn't going to shed out another grand for the XS Max. I was just going to buy this. I damaged my XS Max, so I traded that in, so I got some money off this, so it wasn't too much on the price. So I thought that was a good idea instead of lashing out £1,000 now and then £1,000 later when the iPhone 11 or whatever comes out. Yeah, so we're going to do a camera review on this phone. Now, as I've had the XS Max, they're saying on the specs it's pretty much the same camera. As you notice on this one, the XR, it has a single lens at the top here, and the XS and the XS Max has the dual lens thing going on. So a 12 megapixel camera on the XR and the XS Max and the XS, but the XS and the XS Max has the dual lens, so a secondary zoom lens, okay, which uses optical zoom, not digital zoom. So when you zoom in on the XR, it's all digital zoom, and it can go up to 5 times. And there's digital zoom on the XS, and the XS Max is 10 times. You're going to have to bear with me here because I'm going to say XS a lot. So they're pretty much the same. The only kind of difference is that the XS and the XS Max has the 12 megapixel wide. On the XR, it's only a 12 megapixel camera. So I'm not really sure if it is actually much wider, or I've got a load of other photos from when I had the other phone, so we can kind of compare there. Another thing is with the portrait lighting, and when you go into the modes, there's 3 effects on the XR, and there's 5 effects on the S models, okay? Not really fussed about that, I never use them. On portrait mode, I just have it in natural if I'm going to take portrait mode anyway. I don't really use portrait mode at all, only if it's for a laugh really. I've got, you know, my fancy DSLR stuff and mirrorless cameras for that. So yeah, the reason I just bought this is because it will see me out until, you know, Apple brings out a new phone. Anyway, it's good because I can do another camera review on another smartphone, the XR. So this should weigh up to the XS Max, this camera. So we should find out. Okay. That means if the single camera is the same as the S models, that means it's got a ton of video capabilities as well. Both have got optical stabilization in the single camera, and we've got a ton of video stuff. So 4K obviously at 24, which is really good, and 30 and 60 FPS, which is nice how they brought that back into the XR, being as kind of their entry-level budget iPhone as they're calling it. It still has 4K 60, which is really nice. And Pixel 2, I think, yeah, the Google Pixel 2 XL I had didn't have 4K 60. That's a nice, so this is a nice little perk you get with this. 1080 obviously in 30 or 60. I like how they're kind of making this budget. I mean, it's still $799, but it has all kind of the same features. Things you can do with slow-mo, the camera, 12 megapixels, all in a single camera. Also, not forgetting the front camera, it is, again, exactly the same as the S models. You get a true depth camera, which means you can do the portrait mode on the front camera, 2.2 aperture, 7 megapixel photo. Everything the same, smart HDR, portrait mode, and this new thing, depth control. Well, not really new now, is where you can change the aperture on your photo. It's like I think it's a bit gimmicky, but anyway, you can play around with that. I don't tend to really use it that much because I have proper lenses for kind of that stuff. And again, with phones, you know, I don't really, they're nice for kind of behind the scenes stuff. This is coming from a photographer's point of view. Obviously a photographer's going to have a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, a 4/3 camera, or, you know, a point and shoot. They're always going to have that as their main priority as a camera, and then they'll have like a phone as a backup to, you know, if their camera runs out of battery, they've got no batteries left, but they have 4K on their phone, they can video themselves as making a YouTube video. Or, you know, you can do behind the scenes photos to show your photo shoot. iPhones, smartphones in general are very good at that. So that's another good thing about these phones, how the cameras are getting so much nicer now and so much more crisper within, you know, the lenses and this dual stuff going on. it's good to have, you know, a smartphone in your pocket as a photographer, as a backup. You're probably wanting to see some samples and some video. I'll throw up some slow-mo of my dog running around just now. He's behind me, and that is taken in 1080 to 240 frames per second. Right then, okay, so I've taken a million photos. Struggling a bit with the portrait mode and stuff like that. I know it's kind of like a cool feature, you know, iPhone 10 with the portrait mode, but I don't know. I think you have to find a good balance of where you have the depth control. I think 2.8 is around a good balance. If you take it all the way down to 1.4, there's way too much blur there, and it just looks, it just looks fake, to be honest. And also you're better off just taking a normal photo, just in the normal mode, with the normal camera, and then, you know, putting it into Lightroom or Vosco or whatever, and putting your edit on it. I think that would be a much better way. With portraiture, it's very hard to get depth there on any smartphone camera, which I think is pretty an obvious statement. But if you're taking kind of the sky and trees, shadows, you know, with a lot of dynamic range in your field of view, it's very good at doing that. It picks up shadows very nicely. The camera's not too dark. You can see the detail, even in, you know, if you've got kind of really bright sunlight in the background, and then you've got kind of foreground of trees which is darkened to your own eye. In the camera, it will pick it up quite nicely. And again, you can tap, you know, to get the AF and go up and down with the exposure, so that's pretty good with that. It works quite well. Other things though I've noticed with this, and kind of different to the iPhone XS and XS Max cameras, there is a slight difference in low light. I have noticed in the XR it's considerably worse when taking on the XR from my memory. On the XS and XS Max was really good. The low light was excellent. I got on really well with it. I'll try and find some old photos. If I have some low light, I'll put them up right now. And again, some low light ones I've taken with the XR. The XR, I mean, it might be something to do with the dual lens. I don't know if the second lens is helping the single lens, I don't know. But it should just be the single lens working if you're not zooming in. I mean, I don't know, they might be the same, but when I zoom into the low light on, say this picture for example, all the trees out of focus, I did tap, you know, where the tree is to make sure that's in focus, and it's just really, it's not a great photo, and this one as well. It just doesn't look great. But this one on the other hand, of Hannah's car here, it looks pretty good. It's got the nice, you know, the colour of the deep blue in the sky. And if you zoom in, I mean, it's obviously you know, a smartphone camera in low light. It's not going to do as well as a DSLR, obviously, but this one came out all right. So I mean, you do have to play with it and try and get, you know, fiddle about with it to get the optimum sharpness out of the camera, with tapping focus everywhere, and as I said, fiddling about with it to where it kind of works the best. But yeah, that's what I kind of noticed with the two cameras. Even though they're the same, 12 megapixels, all that, 1.8 aperture, the low lights seem to be different. So, conclusion then, I mean, based on the normal camera, if you're taking in daylight and stuff like that, it's pretty much exactly the same as the XS and the XS Max. There's literally no difference. The video is all the same, you get optical stabilization and all that. You just don't get the secondary camera on the back, that's it. When I zoom in on this camera, the 10R is absolutely horrible. I'll demonstrate it right now. Zoom in as far as it can go, so 5 times. Take a photo, and I'll put that up. You can't use it. Maybe if you go to, like, I don't know, 3 times and stuff. I mean, what I'm going to use it for is probably like zooming in on Instagram stories or Snapchat stories or something like that. I'm not actually going to take a photo zoomed in unless there's some weird creature somewhere when I'm walking. Oh my god, look at that, and I zoom in and want to get it quickly. That's it. I'm not going to take anything professionally on the zoom on this camera because it's terrible. But then again, I'm not going to use it. I rarely use the dual camera on the XS and the XS Max, so it's not really any use to me. If you're kind of a camera nerd and you want everything, then yeah, XS Max is going to be the camera for you. But again, as I said at the start of the video, it's coming from a photographer's point of view. It's good for me just to have a phone with a reasonably good camera, just to take snaps, you know, throughout my day. They're not going to be posted on it. Well, some of them might be posted on Instagram if, you know, I find something interesting to take photos of and I can get creative with it. That's another point. You have to get very creative with smartphone cameras to make them look, you know, as good as something coming out of a mirrorless or a DSLR camera. If you just want a phone with a good camera, 10R is very good. I mean, it's got all the 4K, it's got all the 1080 slow-mo, 240 frames per second, all of that. It's really good. So are you missing out if you get the 10R and not the XS Max? The only thing you're missing out is the dual camera and the slightly bigger screen if you take the whole phone into consideration. Then again, this one, the 10R is 6.1 inches, and I think the 10S, the smaller version of obviously the Max, is only 5.8 or 5.9. So this is actually bigger than the 10S, and I put it up against the 10S Max. It's not really much. It's like 0.4 of an inch smaller. So the screen's really good, and also it's LCD. I haven't really noticed anything, you know, the blacks are a little bit more pushed up in the shadows, but that's about it. Really no difference. So I'm not losing anything really compared to this. And I don't know if I'm going to buy the iPhone 11S or whatever they bring out, the Max version. If they bring out another budget one, the 10RS or something, if it's good enough, then I'll probably just go for that because I've got all my fancy gear, camera stuff. So that's my take on the phone and also the camera. If you've got any questions, comment them down below. I'll be happy to answer in the comment section. But yeah guys, camera review done. 10R in red. Cool. Alright, that's it guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next one. Goodbye.
Yeah, hundreds on my bed, texting with the bill. Roses in my wallet and I'm flexing it for real. Racks on racks on racks, I look like rookie of the year. Frontin' with the cash, it's getting moody over here. Hundreds on my bed, texting with the bill. Roses in my wallet and I'm flexing it for real.